The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. We do that every week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. We are back this week with part 2 of an incredibly insightful conversation with David Kolbusz. Please listen to part 1 first if you have not already. We posted that last week. Seriously though, he's one of the most incredible humans I've had on the show, so we couldn't encapsulate his story and advice in one episode. So for the first time ever, we said screw it, we're making this a two-parter. And really, that's great news for you, the aspiring advertiser, because David is one of the best in the business. Flipping the page, David is the Chief Creative Officer at Orchard, and he's also an Adweek Creative 100. Frequently cited as one of the advertising industry's most esteemed creative leaders, David began his career as a journalist, moving into copywriting because it felt less corrupt as an industry. He's worked on some of the biggest brands in the world, including Coca-Cola, Amazon, Facebook, Axe, and The Gap. When it comes to the work he creates on behalf of brands, Kolbusz's standards are high, but never at the expense of collaboration. Here are some quotes about David. Kolbusz is known for being one of the ad industry's most sought-after creative leaders, and his next move after Droga 5 has long been a subject of speculation. That was in Adweek, April 12th of 2022. And David Droga himself described David as one of the world's best creative leaders, featured in Campaign magazine. This episode starts with the cliffhanger we promised last week, where David explains the most embarrassing ad he has ever produced. And we get deep into how he worked with David Droga at Droga 5 London and other tangible advice for you to break in and thrive in advertising. So also, we listed out David's top resources for aspiring advertisers on our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod. That's at Breaking and Entering Pod. Go there, give us a follow, and check out those secret tools. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. David, we're back. Part 2, episode 2. First time we've ever done this. We were talking before.
Pioneering.
How have you been since we last talked?
I'm good. It's been a busy week, but very good. And I enjoyed our chat last week, and I'm excited to pick up where we left off.
Yes. I was gonna ask any new business wins, any campaign announcements since we last spoke. Is that legal to ask?
There's stuff coming up. Actually, there'll be some things coming out next week.
And by the time this airs, it'll probably already been out for a couple weeks.
True. So I should just say yes.
Yeah.
There will be yes, there is new. So new work, yes, and then the new business win. I mean, hopefully, we'll see.
It's always hopefully.
We'll see if that materializes before this airs.
Gotcha. Well, we'll have to follow up. All right, but let's get back to it, because we left last episode last week with a cliffhanger. The cliffhanger being we talk with amazing guests every week about how amazing they are and their creative agencies are and the ads they make, how great they are, award winning. But we decided to flip the script a little bit. We want to know, what are some of the most embarrassing ads? What's the single most embarrassing ad you've made that sold, that you're looking back on, that we can learn from?
So I think the criteria which we established at the end of the last episode was it has to be an own goal. It can't be something that the client made worse.
Right.
And that it had to be
from you that you sold.
This is like, you sold this, you went to camera with this, you thought this was going to be great, and then when it was cut together, you were like, ooh, that didn't quite work out as I'd planned.
Oh yeah.
And in my defense, it was actually my first TV ad ever. And it came hot off the back of me doing a bunch of radio. So I had a brilliant client named Rudy on Taco Bell when I was at TBWA Chiat Day. And and he was just a lovely guy. He was a chain smoking Englishman, um, who I was very fond of, and kind of he tolerated all my early um, dynamism, I suppose, is the way we'll put it kindly. My dynamic nature, my early dynamic nature, over enthusiastic, blah blah blah. So I'd done a lot of radio for Taco Bell. I was sort of in charge of the Taco Bell account. I was the writer on the Taco Bell account, doing lots and lots of radio, which was and when you wrote radio in those days, you were also primarily responsible for directing the talent as well too. So that was where I sort of learned um, how to direct talent, how to work with and just sort of comedic form as well too. But of course, as radio is theater of the mind, as
Right.
they say, and so what works on radio isn't necessarily something that's going to work on the screen. So my first TV commercial was would have made a great radio spot, I think, but it was using the trope of the father son chat,
Oh yeah.
and a uh, tired structure, but hackneyed a little bit probably now. Back then, maybe less so. Definitely fit the era. Um, but it was, yeah, it was a firm comedic construct then. There was a father son chat about mysteries of life. I don't think it was a birds and bees chat. I think it was more just kind of like, what's it all about? Uh,
Hmm.
but I don't remember the exact dialogue, but it kind of devolved into the father explaining life through uh, the metaphor of constructing a taco or a chalupa or whatever it was. And um, it was fine. It was just like dialogue comedy and like just kind of like, here's the product, insert product here, dialogue comedy in a slightly comedic framework. And I had a, do you remember, I don't know if you're old enough to remember buttons, but buttons were a really big thing back in the late 90s and early 2000s, where you'd have your spot unfold, you'd have the end title, and then you'd cut back to a bonus gag
Oh yeah.
at the end, and those were called buttons. They've kind of fallen out of fashion, but are sort of coming back because 90s advertising is sort of coming back a little bit. And it had a button of him playing guitar and singing a song about the mysteries of life, and it was just again, it would have worked on radio, but it was really cringy in the
So
edit.
you mentioned that's cool. I didn't know that term was called buttons when you. So explain buttons real quick, and then also the client. You said chalupa.
Yeah,
So I don't know if we mentioned it was Taco Bell.
yeah.
Want to get
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned Taco Bell, but
okay.
maybe not.
Makes sense though. So it was a conversation, father son, kind of serious about life, metaphor for a chalupa, building
Yeah.
a chalupa, TV spot, and it had the button in it. So what's the button again?
So the button is the end gag, the gag at the end of a commercial.
So it wraps up.
Yeah,
You title or whatever.
and then one extra bonus gag.
I
You
like
you
those.
you return to the scene that you've just watched
And
and has ostensibly wrapped up already.
yeah, I like those. Fun little. It's like cherry on top.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And sometimes they're great, but sometimes they're not. And I think they got a. I think probably the first button was great, and then the second button was probably a little less great. And then I don't know. It's that
Hmm.
thing where people start to ape a
Yeah.
thing that they think is funny, but do it in a less impactful way, and then it becomes a, a cliche of the genre. And anyway.
So how we got to find this thing, right?
No, I know. I'm gonna hopefully by the time, because we're having this conversation in the moment, and I've had a little look for it and haven't managed to find it with any degree of success. But in the time between when this is recorded and when you actually post it,
Hmm.
hopefully uh,
It'll be some time.
it'll be a non-issue, and we'll be able to find it online.
And yeah, I think if for some reason we don't find it by the time, probably in a month from now, um, we'll have the listeners search for it. So what could be some keywords to look for that
Father and
thing?
son, Could be "Think outside the bun," which was the tagline for Taco Bell at the time. Um,
90s, you said?
it was 2001 or
Okay.
2002. It was either 2001 or 2002.
So it didn't work because of what?
It was just trying too hard. So one of the things that you learn, I mean, like a lot, and I say learn, a lot of people still make comedy in a very obvious way. Most comedy spots are, you should never try and make someone laugh. You should try and reveal truths that just so happen to be funny. But if you're writing gags, if you're intentionally writing gags like you're writing it for sketch comedy, it rarely ever works. Sketch comedy is a lot different than advertising commercials, comedic advertising commercials, because with sketch comedy you can be a lot sillier because uh, you've got a voluntary audience. You've got people who are coming to watch you.
Mhm.
Whereas with um, TV commercial comedy, you're invading people's homes and taking up their time and trying to
Right.
sell them something. So the price of entry, uh, usually if you're trying too hard to make people laugh, or you're trying too hard to make people cry, as with anything, intentionality is quite important when you're writing ads, and you shouldn't be trying to do anything. You should just be revealing truths.
I like that.
Yeah.
It makes it easier too. I feel like less stress on the writer.
Well, easier and harder, because I mean, to write something true is very difficult. That is still compelling. That's
Yeah,
still interesting to an audience. Um, yeah,
I hear you on that. So that was in 2001, and you were at TBWA Toronto,
exactly. So that was 2001 or 2002. I'm not sure
or
which.
ish,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you were there at TBWA in Toronto, and you were a copywriter by on paper. That was your
Yes,
title,
yes. I was a copywriter. Yes.
copywriter. You're there for about two years ish, a little
Uh,
less than two.
yeah, probably a little less than two. It's like a year and a half, I'd say, maybe
I
a year.
think for this second part of the recording,
Hmm.
I want to kind of go through high level. Then the success in your career is you have a couple different amazing agencies. Uh, I see Goodby, I see
Mhm.
BBH London, I see Wyden. I mean Droga,
Yeah,
and now your agency. Like let's talk about high level. Like what did you learn at these different agencies? Why did you leave? Like what inspired you? What were some great work? Just what are
yeah,
those main big points in your career, those landmark moments? And
yeah.
we can start off leaving then the Toronto agency. I saw that you were at Mother Limited for
Yeah.
four years.
I was at Mother in London.
Okay, so that's Mother. Got it.
That's officially Mother. I think they've changed their LinkedIn. I think they were Mother Holdings for a while, and now they're Mother Limited. It's very confusing. I guess I think their LinkedIn profile is their LLC, uh,
Sure.
and, which is funny. But there you go. Yeah. No, I moved over to the UK. Um,
Reason for that.
I really, I wanted to, my mother was over there, and a lot of my favorite agencies were over there. And so I had a couch to surf
Yeah.
on, and a bunch of agencies to break into. So I went for it. Um,
Did you leave having a job lined up, or did you just show up?
I was over visiting my mother at Christmas time, and Yan and Luke were kind enough to see me at Mother. They were a creative director team there at the time, and they liked my work. And I followed up with them a few months later, and they said that there was an open position, and did I want to come for an internship? And I moved my entire life over to the UK for an internship placement. Yeah.
What did your mother say about that?
She was, I mean, I knew there were lots of agencies there. So I
Yeah.
knew that even if for some reason I didn't um, gel with Mother, there would be other opportunities. And I thought my work was relatively strong. I'd shot a Taco Bell campaign, notwithstanding. I had a couple of other decent pieces of work that I'd made over the course of a year and a half. Yeah, and
So no bad blood in Toronto.
yeah,
You had deep
no,
admiration from some of these other agencies
I,
in London.
I've sort of loved every place in a very in its own specific way. Every
Right.
place I've ever been, and so historically, like I actually feel quite bad moving jobs in market. So
Hmm.
you'll notice every job change that I've had, I've moved continents. So I've just gone back and forth between the UK and America. Um, so yeah, it was mother for a few years. Then it
Yeah,
was
you spent a good amount of time there for
yeah,
a little over 4.5 years.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a while. Well, because the pipeline was great there at that time. Well, I mean, mother still does great work all the time, but
Oh yeah.
there was sort of like there were no bad briefs really. Everything was an opportunity, and uh, Robert and company really made sure that everything that was through the door was not just a money grab. It was actually like good work, or an opportunity to do good work. And it didn't ever feel like he was trying to just try to get business through the door so that he could attempt to do good work. He was always very polarizing in the pitch process. He really put out the best work, the stuff that he thought was
What's the full name of this person we're talking about?
oh, Robert Saville. Sorry,
Gotcha.
my apologies. Robert Saville, founder, uh, iconoclast. Yeah, a big personality.
Man, it sounds like a good podcast guest.
In the you'll never get him.
Mm.
He's, I don't think Bob he's not a I think he stopped doing interviews like probably 10 years ago.
Oh, well,
Honest, honest to God, but
well, there's other iconoclasts out there.
there's other wonderful people from
Yes,
the,
I'm not.
you
There's no shortage,
you should have
thankfully.
Felix Richter, who's running Mother now. He's really good.
Good.
He was at Droga, New York. We were kind of like he was yeah. Anyway,
And we'll get to Droga. What was the biggest difference from, I guess, just the advertising culture or what you noticed
so,
leaving
well,
Toronto to
yeah, it was a completely different world.
London? Yeah.
Yeah, the London ad market was so different then, so different. Like
What was that like? How do you describe it? Is it strategy focused? I don't know. You
it was yeah. I mean, like I'd never like Toronto didn't have. We had one strategist who was good. He was a really smart guy named Stephen Wright. WRIGHT. I'm
Mhm.
not sure where he is now. I think he might be in Singapore. I think I saw weirdly on LinkedIn that his name pumped up. I think he might be with BVH Singapore or something. Um, but like and that was a late breaking addition. There were no strategists there initially, and then James Spence, who came in as a creative director, he was from HHCL, uh, and he'd moved over to Canada. I can't remember what agency he was at, but he moved from that agency to TBWA. He took over from Pat and Ben, who I talked about last week. Pat Parisi and Ben Vendramin, and he was running TBWA Toronto, and he brought in a strategist, and that was weird. And I hardly ever worked with Stephen, but we had cigarettes together out back, so that's how I sort of became acquainted with him. But strategy as a discipline was not a real thing there. So coming over to the UK, it was quite a shock that there was this additional intermediary step that helped you logically work through the business problems that your clients were giving you. And I think the just the tone of the work was you were able to be a lot more irreverent and sardonic at the time. During that period of British advertising, everything was genuinely amazing.
Anything come off like of that time? Did you either from Mother or any other agencies that we can look into?
Oh yeah, I mean, like it was a great era. That was the whole Levi's, Xbox from BBH, from Mother. It was all the Orange work, a lot of which I was involved in at Fallon. I mean, the famed sort of that whole period was like you'd have Sony Balls and Gorilla and yeah, Abbott Mead Vickers was doing a lot of great work as well too for Guinness. That was the era of that decade saw Levi's Odyssey and Surfer and
Oh, right.
yeah, for Guinness.
So those are all these ads that you just listed out were born in London
Yeah, all
for the
those
most part.
were from that London school of the 2000s. It was sort
Gotcha.
of like that era was sort of like from 1999 to I want
What,
to say like 2008, 2007, 2008.
knowing what you know, I guess, or even today, like, should people go to London now if they're just starting out in their careers? Like, is it still that same hub for strategy, creativity,
Yeah,
or can you find that anywhere now?
it's a great market. The world has gotten smaller. Strategy has unfurled
Yeah, it seems
globally
like
and
every
become sort of this thing that is now not. I mean, I've always loved strategy and valued it, and
not every creative I feel like does, right?
it's the entire operating model for Orchard is strategy and creative truly working in lockstep.
People
And
say that. A lot
yeah,
of people say that, right?
a
Or like,
lot of people say that, but we actually do it, which is really really different.
so what does that look like at Orchard then?
Uh, it's where we address the business problem together. We
Hmm.
work on the strategy together. Strategists work on the creative together. Our creative directors, we don't have art director and copywriter. We have strategic director and creative director, either copy or art direction. And then
Hmm.
based on that, the team underneath. If we've got a copywriter CD and a strategic director as your creative directing the project,
Right.
then the team underneath will typically be more art direction heavy.
Gotcha.
So they'll make up for the weak spot of the creative director, and
Okay.
then vice versa. If it's an art director, creative director, then the team underneath will typically be uh, uh, more copy
What do
focused.
you, what are you looking for in a great strategist when you're hiring? Or
Just an ability to think analytically, but also creatively.
mm,
Um, there are many many ways to solve a single business problem, but you have to do it with a degree of there's things that are true. There are fundamentals that you need to. It's not just you're not just flinging darts at a dartboard. Shouldn't be like
to me, where do you even start? Right? Like, there's so many different frameworks. I see these influencer strategists, freelancers that had agency careers are making their own workshops and analyzing case studies and working backwards. Like, how do you even start as a strategist? Like, I mean, is it understanding just basic insights, writing up a one-page brief, breaking down? Where do you go? How do you begin?
that is a phenomenal question. I think it's a profession that or a discipline specifically, not profession, discipline that rewards curious thinkers and analytical thinkers. And usually, if your brain is built that way, um,
Did you ever consider it?
no, no, that's a hobby. Like I love strategy, and it's like me considering dance. Like I love dance. I love the act of choreography, or but I'm hopelessly uncoordinated.
Okay.
Or architecture. I love structures and systems, and the aesthetic beauty of these things that house us and where we find shelter. But at the same time, I'm so bad at math.
Right. So, but you respect it, but you don't get too involved. You let them do their magic.
Yeah, and I have opinions,
Right.
but
Taste. Yeah.
yeah, and exactly, and taste. But there's a concrete logic to it, and an obviousness that presents itself to strategists that I never see. I can't recognize it. It can make sense to me, but I can't conceive of it if that makes sense.
Do you think London still is that, like, epicenter mecca for strategy? Like, if a junior strategist really wanted to be ingrained, go to school, maybe go to a portfolio school or 1 year program, should they go to London, or is that not necessary anymore?
I think because it's been in the water for so much longer in London.
Yeah.
Naturally, there's going to be a more established uh, kind of group of people to train from.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I mean, America, between when I was at Wyden and when I came back now, 6.5 years later, the level, the standard of strategist has improved dramatically. You just get you see a better. People are understanding now that it's well, yeah, it's not a nice to have. It's kind of the only way to sell good work anymore, because data has become such a big part of how clients buy work.
Got it. So you left then Mother, and you went to Goodby.
Yeah. So yeah.
Did you go to San Francisco for that?
I did. Yeah, I was in San Francisco for 3 years.
And trained under Jeff and Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. I was partnered with Margaret, who's now running the show there, and she was brilliant, as you would expect, and just a wonderful human being. And worked. Yeah, it was so my main partners there were the people that I connected with the most. There were Margaret and Leslie Barrett, who's now running the show there along with Margaret, and then of course my now strategic partner Laura Janis, who we got along very well.
Lori.
Laura.
Shout out Laura.
CSO of Orchard.
So you met her at Goodby.
Yes.
And what was she doing? She was a strategy director at Goodby when you got there?
That's exactly right.
You didn't know her beforehand?
No.
So this is interesting. This is a big part of your story. You met
somebody.
somebody.
Yeah. Well, we worked together on ice cream, and I'm not sure we produced much in the way of quality work. I think it was either Breyers or Dryers, whichever one Haagen-Dazs owned owned Haagen-Dazs. I think we worked on Haagen-Dazs a little bit too. We basically worked on we were at the time we worked on very thankless accounts, and didn't really get any work out together, but very, very much enjoyed the struggle together.
Nice.
And we've kind of spent like we were in touch, obviously, on the regular afterwards, trying to find an opportunity to work together again. And so
that does happen. It did happen.
It did. Spent 15 years trying to get back together again.
Oh, okay. So good. So you were there then you were at Goodby for 3 years. I'm sure it was incredible working under Jeff and Rich. A lot of hills over in San Francisco.
Yeah.
One of my best friends just moved out there last year. And I was fortunate enough to go visit.
It's a nice city. It's a beautiful city.
The Bay. Yep. Did you go to Alcatraz?
Yeah, I never went to Alcatraz. Weirdly,
people don't go there. I was like, I want to go right away. See Al Capone. I'm from Chicago. I wanted to see Al Capone, like where he's his cell. But I digress.
No, so I love the idea of Alcatraz, but the logistics, like having to take a boat somewhere to see a thing, being stranded there, then getting the boat back. Like for some reason in my head, it always just seemed a lot harder than it probably actually was.
I get that. My friends were joking that they were going to leave me there.
Right. Wow.
Like they were doing a Shutter Island experiment. Like
sure.
Like
How long do you think you'd last in prison?
Couple years.
Wow.
Yeah, I got it.
Wow. Jesus. Okay. Good for you.
I've been in a couple times. No, I'm just kidding. It's called Breaking and Entering, right? That's the name of the show.
You're a fighter.
Breaking and Entering.
Exactly.
We all might go to jail if we sent these crowbars out, these crowbar awards.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the kids got them. The students got them. Well, not kids. They're recent grads of college.
Sure.
And they're awesome. I want them to break into an agency with it. So
that's fun.
Yeah, it's a cool award.
Yeah.
We might have you judge a crowbar award. They're quarterly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We would love to have you.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
We'll be in touch.
Oh.
Okay, so then BBH, I see Wyden,
Yeah,
Droga 5. You spent, I think Droga, if I'm looking correctly here, was your longest stint at an agency, and that was in London.
it
And I
was.
remember reading all about on the trades, you leaving Droga for Orchard. So where do you want to take it from here? I think like high level best ads you might have made, biggest learnings just from BBH to Droga. What goes on in that
My
world
friend, it is
of
your
your
show.
life?
You tell me where you want me to focus. So you want
I want to know.
work highlights from BBH to the present?
Yep, let's go.
Okay. So BBH was a good experience. It was a very specific. I think I learned a lot in terms of how to be with clients, and that's be in quotes, and learned the practice of strategy kind of from slash with Laura. Like she was so fundamental in helping me learn how to think. Um, which is why like our dynamic now is like it's so easy. It's like riding a bicycle because she taught me to think strategically, really. Um, and we worked on so many briefs and kicked the tires on so many things. So if Goodby was foundational for how to do account management and how to do strategy, then BBH, I realized the importance of getting a lot of great creative work and making that in a short amount of time.
Right, because you said Goodby, you met Laura, but
Yeah.
you didn't get a lot of work out. But BBH, they
Goodby had
were
like two things out that I was really, really proud of, but it was 3 years of a lot of frustration, but learning.
got it. And then
And then,
BBH, you got a lot of briefs, and you were able to turn
yeah,
it. You got into your flow, and
exactly.
you
BBH
sold a lot.
would take everything I'd learned from Goodby and apply it to the creative work. And it was bang, 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 bang. So I had a very, very good 3.5 years there, putting out an awful lot of work. The Guardian is probably the most famous, the
Ah,
three little
yes.
pigs, the whole picture of that campaign. There was lots of work for uh, I was running the Axe account. Did that with Don Goldman for at first, and then I took over from him on that account and did some big campaigns there.
Big
Um,
time with the Guardian, 3 pigs, correct?
yes, that was
Gold pencils, I saw pretty much.
yeah,
You get any lions for that? I'm sure.
yeah, bunch of gold lions for that as well
Was
too.
that like your big award-winning like career session?
That was there's always anyone who's quote unquote made it in advertising always has 1 year where
Yeah, that was your year, breakout year.
it's like it's a big year where you get a bunch of awards for a thing, but
Right. You get one, you create 1 or 2 campaigns that,
yeah,
and then my job it's my job to enter these damn award shows
right, yeah.
a million times in a bunch of different categories. I don't know if that was the case for yours, but and if it does well in one of the big 5, it'll start winning in each
Yeah,
one. The judges start to see it, and obviously it's great work, and then it'll start rallying up a bunch of different awards in these
yeah,
different shows, right?
yeah. I think it was a little less methodical back then.
Okay.
Even 10 years ago, I think it kind of got really it ramped up. This was around like 2012. This was right around the time that everything got international and that these systems of which you're speaking got way more formalized and
Ah,
a
okay.
lot more of a business. Award shows used to be more just like yearbooks of the best advertising, and sure they were money making ventures, but they I think it was less deliberate. I think.
There
Or
are full-time jobs, or it's just award show.
so yeah, exactly. So that wasn't really as much of a thing in 2012. It was
Oh yeah,
that's sort of something that's kind of
that's nice.
that's sort of the area. The early 2010s is when everything started to get
Sounds like
quite.
a much simpler time.
It was a much simpler time. Um, I don't think it was a. Some people would argue that it was a better time. I disagree. I think there was there was more better television advertising, but I think and so you often get older people bemoaning the state of the industry now. But I think there's a lot of really great creativity out there. It's just not necessarily on a screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, which seems like such an obvious thing to say, but I think people complain about advertising being not as brilliant as it once was, and I think what they really mean is some more of these traditional forms like television and press and poster. But that's because uh, the media landscape has grown exponentially, and there are far more different ways to communicate, and so yeah.
Gotcha. So BBH, that was your breakout, like
Yes.
your big award show year, agency stint. So from there, you got deputy executive creative director and partner.
Yeah,
Life's looking good. You're gonna stay there forever.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think I was ready for the next challenge. And I think I was ready to try and
So
run a place. Nick Gill, brilliant ECD, gave me a lot of room to kind of maneuver, and I had an enormous amount of autonomy at BBH, which was very nice. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to see if I could do the whole thing. And Wyden brand was very strong at the time, obviously. And
you go to Wyden, Portland, correct?
New York.
I know.
Yes.
Why did you go to New York then? Because everybody knows Portland for Nike, and I'm not sure what the state of Wyden, New York was in 2014 and 2015.
It was okay, but it needed to kick up the pants.
Right.
And Portland, I think I probably wouldn't have wanted that job. I don't think they would have given me that job at that stage. But Portland was almost too good and too successful, and there wasn't enough to work with, and you'd just be going in there and trying to play catch up with
Right.
with these this force to be reckoned with, this agency, this behemoth. But New York was had a lot of potential. And
So what were you working on, or what do you oversee every client?
So the accounts, so they just we just won Gap. So Gap, there was Gap, there was ESPN, there was Delta, there was Southern Comfort. There were just a bunch of really interesting brands. And then when we won the Squarespace Super Bowl project, which is where the sleeping tapes with Jeff Bridges kind of came from, and sort of established their current paradigm where you bring in a celebrity and show how they use the website to great effect.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that was the Wyden era. So I don't know if I don't know, my time there. Half of it was with Susan as my partner, and half of it Susan Hoffman, Line of St. Mark recipient.
Yeah, this year.
Yeah, this year.
Congrats to Susan. Let's get you on too.
Sorry?
Let's get her on the show too.
Susan's great, and she's such a great talker. And yeah, I bet you Susan would do it. She's very humble, but she's such an amazing mind and a brilliant person. And then half my time there was also with Jamie Robinson, who now runs Joan, her own agency.
Joan. Yeah.
So
wow, you're really putting yourself in these scenarios with amazing creatives, and
the partners are who your colleagues are, who you learn from. It's very important. Which I think similar minds gravitate towards each other as well too, both creatively and strategically.
So what led you then to Droga 5 London?
I missed London. Like the Wyden experience was a good one, but I think
New York.
Yeah, and New York at the time felt very moneyed. I think it's interesting that when you have Republican mayors running a city for that long and basically selling the entire place out to the private sector, it gives a lot of, New York was very kind of playground for the rich at the time, weirdly, I think the pandemic has cleared it out a little bit
Hmm.
and made it a lot more interesting of a place to live again. But yeah, it felt a little. I think New York felt a little soulless at the time, and London felt like more of a community. And so and I got along really well with David Droga, and so it felt like that was an interesting project to take on.
You did that for a little over 6.5 years.
Yeah.
Biggest learnings from Droga, 5, London, and David himself. What's he like?
David's lovely.
Yeah.
He's just an actual wonderful human being, like a really good person, and really really smart, and yeah, just
How close? I mean, you were the chief creative officer at
yes.
that point, so you were probably working with him directly all the time.
Uh, no, I mean he was focused on New York. New York was getting so big at the time, it was like ballooned like crazy.
Right.
And he was also eyeing up global expansion and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so, I mean,
And he did it.
yeah, David and I were always friendly,
Yeah.
and
So you were overseeing London. He was really taking care of things in New
yeah.
York and London, of course. But
I think London had a bit of a false start. I think it was Droga 5 Europe first, and I
okay.
think it wasn't doing quite so well, and he just needed to plop someone over there who could handle it, because New York was just popping off. It was
So
crazy.
he trusted you.
Yes, I think he was a fan of the work, and he understood that I was my name was quite strong in the London
So
market.
you had some autonomy over in London, and he was like, "I need you, David, to take care of this."
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we said at the beginning. Is I was very I wasn't shy about how important that was to me, and the fact that I was at the stage now where I actually didn't want anyone
Yeah.
interfering, not in a disrespectful way. I
Right.
mean, but it just like,
That's
you know,
appealing.
when you're ready to do your thing, you want to do your thing and not have someone holding the pen while you.
Oh, this is interesting now. So you get in there,
Yeah,
you got the autonomy, you got to kind of fix,
yeah,
I guess maybe, or elevate the market there
yeah.
in London. Europe, you were saying it was like Europe at first, or what?
Droga, the work coming out of the place hadn't necessarily been that strong. The foundation, all the foundational elements were there. There were really good people in the building,
Right. But
but I think
something was missing,
something was just missing. I think
and that was you, maybe.
I don't want to. No,
No, who knows?
I think lots of people probably could have done that job, but
So how did you approach it? What was the first thing you did? What was your big goal there, and what did you achieve?
well, it's the thing that I wanted to do is make sure that everyone was working together in pursuit of a common goal, which was the best work possible. My remit was to not to make a fuck ton of money. It was to establish Droga as a creative force in that market. And
Sure.
so it was just about making great work and not worrying about the numbers. New York was making so much money at that stage, but it didn't actually, it wasn't that important. The money wasn't.
Right. That's like a perfect position to be in. That's like who would pass that opportunity up? I mean, you have experience in London. You had great people and you just needed to unify. You didn't have to worry about, because a lot of times agencies have to worry about making money,
Exactly.
and they'll put up, you know, they'll make bad work, or
Yeah.
they'll give up and they'll appease the client because they're, bringing them in money. So you
Yeah.
didn't have to worry about that.
No,
So who are some of those big clients that you?
Droga was true to his word about that, and that was great. He said you don't actually have to. He said it would be nice if you didn't lose any money,
Yeah,
but
heck yeah.
but
Yeah, let's not go
you don't have to
crazy,
worry about profit. It's just mostly about the product.
which
Um,
is amazing.
well, it was really smart. It was just understanding the market at the moment, and the fact that if you're going to charge a premium for superior creativity, the creativity has to be superior. And so we started with I think Rustlers was our first. There were clients already there, and some of them were interested in doing good work, but most of them weren't.
Yeah.
And so we weeded out some of those and brought in some new ones. Rustlers, we shot a film for Rustlers. We had Rustlers, which is a microwavable burger
Mm.
product company. our first big thing, our big like kind of we're here, came about 9 months into my tenure. We had a few little bits and pieces with the existing clients, which were, some of them were okay, but the first thing that I was really, really proud of was the Rustlers work, and that was shot with Steve Rogers. 80 Years of Torment, I think it was called.
Okay, I was going to ask you what are those keywords that people?
Yeah, yeah. And that was the first piece that kind of signaled that we were there. And from there, we got slightly larger clients like Ancestry and Quiff and Secret Escapes, and those things kind of led to so like Amazon and Barclaycard, and so it was just a exactly the development curve was exactly as you'd expect, just upward trajectory.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
When did Accenture come into play?
So it was probably about halfway through or 2/3.
Did you see that? Did you know that when you took the job? Did you know Accenture was coming?
No, I mean it was the William Morris Endeavor minority stake thing had already happened, and so there was an assumption that eventually someone would probably buy the whole thing. Didn't know when, but yeah, no, we didn't know. And I think at the time, of course, a lot of people were alarmed, because everyone is when a holding company buys an independent agency.
Right.
But it always felt like it was for the right reason. And Accenture Interactive, as they were called at the time, now Song. I think it was so alien as an entity to the advertising industry that they never really acted. They never really operated as a spoiler like some of the other holding companies, the more nefarious ones, often do.
Yeah. So who did, I guess, in that Accenture Interactive at the time, what were some, like, were they looking at other agencies? I assume Droga 5 would be their flagship creative offering.
Yeah,
Who else did they have under their belt?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah. That might be yeah.
Well, I think Karmarama in market was already owned by Accenture, and then there was Rothco in Ireland. Rothco has now become Droga Ireland.
Okay.
Karmarama, I believe, is still Karmarama. But yeah, there was Droga was definitely the crown jewel.
Did you notice a shift then? Like, because everything I read at the time, I was a student, and I was actually visiting the New York office, and I asked somebody at the time, I heard you guys got acquired by Accenture. You're worried about the creative endeavors. Will that affect you all? She's like, no, we'll be good.
No, no one was. And it didn't affect the creative.
If anything, right, like kind of like with the conversation of like not worrying about like making a huge profit. Like your Accenture's got, I'm sure, quite a bit of money.
Well, yeah,
and data as well that you can tap into.
Yeah, it was like rocket boosting what we already had, which was great. And actually, we probably had our most successful years after being acquired by Accenture, both creatively and monetarily.
As long as they don't put their hand right into the process, I'm sure if they were smart, they wouldn't have.
I had no issues. The only problem I had was around it's like the admin was harder.
Yeah.
But obviously, because when you've got a company that has to accommodate that many different people around the globe, there's definitely going to be systems and processes put into place that don't necessarily fit everyone. And,
yeah. Being independent's nice. I would imagine.
Yeah, there's good things about it and bad things about it. I mean, like, the thing that I'll always say is that there's no when people bemoan
grass is always greener.
Sales of agencies. I mean, it's like I mean, there's the thing I always say is there's crappy independence too.
Oh yeah.
So it's like there's independence is not a recipe for quality. There's some great agencies that are owned by holding companies. There's some terrible agencies that are owned by holding companies.
From a new business and a comms perspective, which I do, I could see it being a little bit easier to craft a narrative around an independent shop
Oh,
because
for sure. There's
you're
obviously,
working with the chief creative officer. It's a little bit smaller. You own
yeah,
it. You don't have to get approvals from another continent. You
yeah.
can do creative things for your own brand as an agency.
I am very, very happy to be running an independent shop, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's funny, it's like I'm extolling the virtues of holding companies, but at the same time, I generally am not I haven't spent a lot of my career working at agencies that are, well, yeah, owned by holding companies or even, yeah.
So that pretty much, I know there's so much in those 6.5 years and this high level podcast,
Yeah.
but so then leaving Droga at 5 to London for Orchard, that was about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it was a year actually, maybe a year and a couple months. But yeah, it was an opportunity to reteam with Laura and with Barney, who I knew from my BBH days, and we
Back to New York.
yeah, played around with the idea of setting something up, and it didn't really happen. I went to Droga. This was years and years before, and then they set up with Jeff Kling, and then uh, and they were Lightning Orchard at the time,
Mm.
and then Jeff Kling decided to move back to LA and do something else, and so there was a slot to be filled, so I came in and did that, and we rebranded as Orchard, and so um, that's kind of where we are now, doing what we're doing.
A 2023 A-list creativity award winner.
That
That's what I'm reading on LinkedIn.
that's not a bad thing.
You're a creative 100.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah, we got on the A list, and then part of the Creative 100 Adweek, which is lovely. And,
Ad age leading women 2021, Laura Janis.
yeah, Laura
Good.
Janis is she's phenomenal.
So you're
Genuine.
doing something right. I guess that leads us to the last question. I
Mm.
guess, what's your final piece of advice for anybody that wants to get in this agency after all of you've learned and after all these years? What can somebody take down today to apply to their break-in and to their successful career?
Think strategically.
Talk to Laura, right?
It's yeah. It's
Call her
it's
up.
it's that simple. It used to be a nice to have, now it's a need to have. I mean, there's the two pieces of advice I always give. One is about like taking in as much art and as you possibly can.
That's true.
Art, music, consume as much culture as humanly possible because those are your inputs. It seems obvious, but
No,
it's
people, I tell people right away, like, if you're an undergrad, you're competing against the best portfolios in the world, right? It's
yeah.
so you need to see what you're up against, and you need to know like the best work that's ever been out there. Look at the 100 best ads of all time, like get those under your belt as well. Start to get that repository built.
In the early days, absolutely study advertising,
Early days,
but look at everything else. And your as you understand as you learn advertising, as you understand advertising, advertising needs to stop being something that you're obsessed with, and you need to start being obsessed with culture writ large,
I like that.
and start applying that. There needs to be a period of changeover where you actually start ignoring advertising in the work of your contemporaries and start looking at the culture around you, because culture is what guides
So is it,
where the industry is headed.
would you recommend then getting the foundation of like, okay, this is like, these are like what are known, have been known as,
Absolutely.
because I know some people say like drummers don't take drum lessons because it like ruins your creativity
Uh,
when somebody tells you how to do the
no,
drums.
I think you have to learn the fundamentals. You really do, but then you have to figure
And
out how to play your own tune.
learn the rules and then learn how to break them, kind of.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and keep consuming culture throughout your life. I think the big mistake that everyone makes, if you want a long career, you can't take your foot off the gas.
Oh yeah.
You
And we
can't just
see that.
yeah, you do, and you see a lot of people saying it's like, but I have all these marketable skills. I know how to copyright. I know how to art direct, and it's like that's half the job. In fact, it's not even half the job. You can learn those elements, but you like uh, understanding culture and relevance and where we are at in this human moment is such a big and important part of the job. So for a long career, you need to keep taking things in. You can't just turn your life to gardening and looking after the kids. You need to be going to things, seeing things, consuming things, if you want a long, fruitful career.
To thrive in advertising.
And understand strategy, learn how to think strategically. That's hugely important.
I love it. David, thank you so much. We have your resources. We'll put that on our Instagram. This is our first ever 2-part episode, and it was full of amazing content. How can people find out more about you, learn more about Orchard?
Well, Orchard is the agency. You know what the funny thing is?
OrchardCreative.com.
Yeah, I think, is that what it is? I'm
Yep,
like, that's
100%.
so funny. I'm like,
You
what's
got
the
Laura
URL?
Janis, David Kolbusz,
Thank God.
Barney Robinson, Jim Lasser, Jen Pennington.
Yeah.
More.
Orchardcreative.com or our socials. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. It's funny that I didn't know what our handle was, but there you go. Check us out.
Amazing. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Gino.